What's going on, guys? Zach Perna here, and at the end of this video today, you're gonna know exactly what to do and you'll know exactly what to eat to get as lean as you want. Let's do it. Okay, so this video is pretty much what I wished I had when I was younger. It's what we didn't have, what we had to kind of figure out, because the whole world of fat loss, building muscle, all of these things, what do I eat, which food's good or bad, it's so nuanced and confusing that it feels like you just don't know where to start. So the whole point of this video, when I was trying to plan it out, was like, what can I give you guys to give you everything you possibly need to understand what's going on and to actually be empowered to do something about it. And if you're feeling right now watching this that, oh, I just don't know if I can get that result, I don't know if I can burn fat because I don't know how, that's kind of what this is for. So I've tried like everything. I know people, it's such a cliche thing, people are like, I've tried everything, but really, like I feel like I have tried everything. And I kind of boiled it down to three main methods that I see it working and how I can conceptualize it. And I think there's three main methods to fat loss that you can do, that all work, but I see them as kind of like levels. So the way that I see the fat loss methods is the first one is just the rules of thumb. We'll get there in a second, but it's pretty much just, you just cut things out, rules of thumb, and live by that. The next one is if it fits your macros style of calorie tracking. That's the next one when you start to understand what's in food. And the last one is intuitive eating. Now, the reason why I say it's levels is because you need an understanding of each one of those to kind of progress up. And that's the kind of how it naturally works for a lot of people. They start with the one and they kind of go up the ladder. Most people don't get to the third one, that's fine because it's quite challenging to get to. But I wasn't ready for that intuitive third ladder when I was younger. Nothing made sense to me. I just wanted to get shredded and all I did was eat lettuce. So that's where I think we have to start. Now, back in the day when I first started trying to get lean, all I did was get quite skinny, but then I just couldn't get that last layer of fat off. I didn't know how. I thought maybe I'm just not designed to get abs or be lean. That's literally what I thought my genetics are stuffed. And it wasn't the case. It's just because I was doing the kind of the wrong approach and I wasn't moving up. So I was just doing the same thing. And then I've been to the stages before where I was really, really lean, competing when I did my first bodybuilding show, and I got disgustingly lean, eating nothing, tracking everything. And I've been to the point where I was pretty much borderline, like I reckon, eating disorder, because all I was thinking about was food and tracking things and trying to, like my mind was just occupied with food most of the time, like literally all day, because I was using like apps to try and fit things in there. And then now I'm finally at a point where food doesn't occupy my brain 100% of the time, but I still obviously love it. And I am still like passionate about eating and all that stuff. But it's not like I'm just relying on that to get through the day. So that's like an intuitive approach. I can still hit my goals without having to overthink and without having to reduce things and go crazy. So that's that intuitive approach that I want you guys to work towards. Now, obviously I'd be a terrible coach if I didn't plug my own programs, because that's what they're there for. So if you guys want meal plans and want to learn about this stuff, that's what I offer below. There's a VIP program. There's also my app as well. So there's a lot that you can choose from, but otherwise the rest of this video is pure free content. So I'm gonna pretty much describe, I'm gonna get straight into it. I've been talking for like 40 minutes. I'm gonna get into these three methods. So each one has pros, each one has cons, but I think it depends on where you are, like I said. So some of you might want to start at this first one. I don't really recommend it, but at least you have an idea of you know, what that actually would do. So this first one is rules of thumb. Now, this is what I like to call it. It pretty much means what you think you should eat for a fat loss diet. It means high volume, low calorie foods. It means salads. It means no carbs, lean meats, cutting out a lot of calories. It just means going for high protein. It's pretty much what people do. They don't eat sugar, they cut things out, they just go high protein. As a result, it's kind of like just taking a stab in the dark. It's like, I hope I'm eating low enough to burn fat. I hope I'm burning more than I'm eating, kind of thing. And most of the time you are, because it's common sense. If you cut out sugars, you cut out a bunch of carbs, you eat low fat, you're not gonna be eating a lot of calories as a result. Therefore, the result is you're probably gonna burn more, you're gonna burn some body fat. That's why anyone can get lean. If you just eat absolutely nothing, you're gonna get lean. So it comes with, I guess the advantages of this is you don't have to think. A lot of people like to do this. They say, don't worry about me, I'm sweet, I'll just eat lettuce and I'm fine. And eat some protein, cool. It's easy, you don't have to think. The disadvantages of this is you don't have a lot of choice in what you're eating, and you're actually not really empowered because you're so restricted in, you think I can't have carbs, I shouldn't have this. You also don't know if you're under or overdoing it. You might be eating absolutely way under what you should be eating, and therefore your training is gonna suffer dramatically, or you're gonna lose fat too quickly and then be left in a position like I don't know what to do anymore. Where do you go from here kind of thing? So I should mention too that throughout this video, I'm gonna show you guys just an example meal of each. So an example meal of the first method of fat loss, which we've just spoken about, the second one, which is more counting calories, and the third one, more intuitive approach. So they're not the exact same meals, but they're just there as a bit of a contrast and just a comparison so you guys can see, a little bit easier to talk about as well. So before we do get into that, I just wanna give a quick thank you and shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Cuts. If you haven't heard of Cuts before, you're probably new to this channel, so welcome to the YouTube channel. But Cuts is basically the best minimalist additions to the wardrobe. So everything from t-shirts, long sleeves, jumpers, jackets, they even do pants, which are amazing. It's awesome. The quality is outstanding. It's very fair priced, and it just looks sick. So my favorites right now are definitely just the normal kind of universal tees, bit looser, not too crazy. I wear a large in all my tops, and also the joggers are crazy. So check that out for sure. You can get 15% off by using the code PERNA or the link in the description below. So definitely check those out. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about is an example of the classic cutting meal that people go to when we're talking about high volume, low calorie, when they just cut carbs and everything, and that is just a giant salad. I don't want to rag on the salad too much. This one, I just whipped it up as quick as I possibly could, chopped up some lettuce, got the chicken, put it in an actual pork crumb, which is just nice. I had it here. And then I haven't seasoned this at all. I haven't dressed this. It's just raw because I might not eat it right now, so I might put this away later. But point being, illustration. So when it comes to this method of trying to burn fat by eliminating carbs or just really going, okay, I'm just going eating salads, look, it will work, right? And that's the thing. And sometimes in the past, I've utilized, and often I will utilize really high volume recipes like this because, as you can see here, the only calories you're really getting from this is whatever dressing you decide to put on it, and also within the chicken. Chicken breast, very low in fats, low calories, minimal. So if you were to eat just all of your meals like this, you're definitely gonna lose fat. And actually, you will undoubtedly lose fat. But what the problem is if you look at this, and I just went for just a quick salad, there are no micronutrients in this. Tomatoes, lettuce. I mean, Jamie Oliver wouldn't even be able to identify the micros in here. So that is what you run the risk of with this stuff, is you run the risk of not becoming nutrient deficient, but per meal, yes. So you just want to look out for that. Now, obviously you can combat that by tracking and just knowing a little bit more about what's in food. But if you eat this all day, you're gonna burn a lot of fat, but you also might underdo it. And that's what I was talking about. You run the risk of under eating because you don't really know where you're at. But that said, this is gonna fill you up a lot. Problem is, when you're eating high satiating foods, such as like fatty foods or high protein, they have a better effect on satiety than does maybe a really lean meat like that, or lettuce. Like this will keep you full immediately, but how long are you gonna stay full for? When are you gonna want your next meal? That's something you guys have to kind of experiment with. So that's number one. That's like the easiest thing. It's the most simple intuition of just cut out this, eat more of that. It usually works for a lot of people, but then I think if you're at that stage, you need to kind of increase your knowledge of food and what's in there for a bit of sustainability and longevity in this. So the next thing is method number 2, which is calorie tracking. Now, most people, I swear, a lot of people live by this, and for some people, for some personality types, it works great. I think the best thing about calorie tracking is, and using this approach, is that it'll teach you what's in food. And I think that is invaluable. You need to know what is in food. You need to know macros and micros. And it's very easy to educate yourself on this. Just do a bit of Googling. You'll figure out what's in food. Download MyFitnessPal. LifeSum is my favorite one. And just go through the supermarket, scan some things, compare, just get a bit of an understanding. That's pretty much what I did a lot of the time. And now, essentially, if you don't know what this would be doing in terms of fat loss, calorie counting in terms of fat loss is like the most methodical of it, because you're literally going, okay, I'm starting at a baseline, so you're gonna start at maybe 2,000 calories for fat loss, let's say. 2,000 calories, you hit your protein based on, there's a formula to figure out what your protein is. You hit your protein, you fill the rest with carbs and fats, and you get your app out and you just track. And you go all day and you choose whatever foods you wanna eat, picking from anything you want. There are no good and bad foods, just go nuts. Eat whatever you want. Provided you hit those numbers and you only go in those numbers, that is gonna dictate the result. So let's say no matter what you eat, your protein's set, no matter what you eat, you're gonna hit 2,000 calories, now you're getting fat loss results, great. As soon as it stops, maybe your body starts to adapt, you might go, okay, 1,900, then 1,800. And that's kind of the thing. It's very linear, it's very methodical, and it pretty much is, as you can tell, it's not very sustainable. For some people it is, but for most people and humans, not robots, humans, it is not sustainable, and that's why I think that next step has to be taken into this. So I've done If It Fits You macros before, and I've done calorie tracking, and I think it's useful for that knowledge component, but I think it's very dangerous because it's very much like a reductionist approach to eating. It's looking at food and going, that's not a steak filled with nutrients, filled with everything your body needs, that is protein. And that's a number. That's like what I don't like about it. So what that can lead to is you, and I've been here before, it's the worst, I'll tell you in a second. It can lead to you just like trying to make anything fit in your diet, and then it causes you to be so obsessive of food. Now, when you're actually eating in a calorie deficit and you're eating low calories, your brain is already about to go crazy because you're starving your body, your brain wants food. It sends signals out to get more food, to be hungrier, to have more cravings. You're not really thinking straight. So because of that, you're already not in a good place mentally to be dealing with food and thinking about it all the time. So if it fits your macros and calorie counting, if you're changing your food all the time, it's gonna make you think about it way more than you should. So for me, when I did it at my, the most calorie counting, I was going insane. And I know a lot of people can relate out there because they're thinking every day they're trying to eat something different because they're told that they should, and then they're counting all the time and going crazy. There's a lot of people that find a good balance in which they eat unprocessed foods. They don't eat sugars in there. They eat good foods and they eat maybe the same thing most days and the same meals most days. And if they want to sub out a dinner for something else, great, go for it. That's where I think it has a lot of merit, is if you have your meal plan, if you want to substitute a snack or a dinner here and there, or you're going out to eat, you know how to kind of manipulate those variables, sweet. But for most people, when they're just really getting into the nitty gritty of just purely calorie counting, if it's your macro stuff, I think it can get a little bit dangerous, and I don't think it is sustainable. Now, the next meal we have here looks surprisingly small, and this is kind of a classic example of if it fits your macros, because I just whipped up a random kind of breakfast, I guess, of, okay, I thought I need some protein, grab a bit of EHP's Oxyway, bit of egg white in there, and then hot cross bun with a tablespoon of peanut butter in there. This is not a lot of food. So the good thing about this is, one, you get to eat hot cross buns. They're fucking awesome. Like, I love hot cross buns. Eggs, nice, it's gonna fill me up a little bit. High protein in here, tastes great as well. That's all well and good, but then you look at this and you go, okay, the only macros we're getting in here is a little bit in the protein, but then you go, there's a bit in the egg. Otherwise, again, it's a bit void of micronutrients. But the benefit is you get to eat kind of a bit of whatever you want. Now, how full this will leave you, who knows? I deliberately made this quite calorie dense. I use the hot cross bun as a bit of a trap of like, if you're dieting, you shouldn't eat this. Because why? Because how full is this gonna leave you? And how hungry are you gonna be after you consume this? For me, I'd be like literally ready to eat that salad that we did earlier. So that's the problem, and that's one of the many problems with this approach, is that you're leaving yourself with kind of too much choice, and then you go, oh, what am I gonna do? You'd be better off using that approach of if it fits your macros, say, and counting your calories to go, okay, let's actually eat proper food, whole food, stuff that's gonna keep you full, regulate your satiety, regulate your appetite, and not leave you starving. Like the sugars in some of this stuff, if you were to just eat a lot of sugars, you'd be so hungry and you'd be wanting more sugars by the time you finished, as opposed to feeling full and then happy with your meal. And finally, the last method is intuitive eating. Now, in my opinion, in my view, this pretty much is a combination of the other methods. It's a combination of knowing what's in food and using calorie counting to be intuitively tracking, mentally tracking without putting things in apps. And it also is allowing a bit of intuition and listening to your body and going off kind of rules of thumb. So there's a reason why people say there are good and bad foods, and there's a reason why people say there are not good and bad foods. Now, it's pretty much because calories is a calorie, but food is not just calorie. Food affects your body differently than just calories affect your body. So if you want your body to be intuitively functioning, you have to have a good understanding of what is in food. You have to have a good understanding of how that whole thing works. That's why I kind of say do it in stages. You have to understand what your body needs as well, and how that can vary day to day, because sometimes you might not be hungry. Sweet. You don't need to eat, you don't just fit in that last meal if you don't really want it. There's days where you might be a little bit more hungry, and then it's okay to eat a little bit more. Knowing and those like kind of that nuanced situation is really important, and you can't just get there immediately, but know that that's like the goal. So that's kind of this is what I've been doing the most recent times. I couldn't tell people what my calories were. I could guess and become quite close, but I wouldn't be able to tell you, oh, I'm on this amount of protein, carbs, fats, because to be honest, it would change. It would change a lot of the time. Me personally, I really try and limit my refined carbs and sugars. I really try and limit that. I eat mainly 99% of the time unprocessed foods the whole time, like steak, salmon, chicken. My carb sources are rice, potato, pumpkin, because I enjoy them, they sit well with me. And fat sources is from meats, all my saturated fats. I have eggs as well, a lot of eggs, and avocado. Some oils as well, coconut oil, olive oil. That is pretty much my fat. And I eat the same thing nearly every day. Sometimes I might sub out a few like snacks, meals here and there, but for the most part, it's the same. I'm using this meal because it's actually what I eat now, and it's kind of like ties in with my intuitive approach to fat loss. So I look at this, and usually I would have an avocado, but we did run out. So I will look at this meal and go, okay, great.
heaps of steak. It's a little bit fatty for my liking, but that's all we had. Heaps of steak, enough greens to keep me full, and I need a bit of carbs today, so we're having some rice. Sits well in the gut and tastes amazing. So for me, that's a really well-rounded meal because it's gonna hit the spot. It's actually gonna keep me full. The amino acids and fatty acids in this meal will regulate to my body that I'm eating enough. I'm not gonna be spiked up with sugar, wanting more sugar. I know it's not messing with my actual brain at that point, and I know that it's gonna keep me pretty satiated. Now, if you compare this meal to the If It Fits Your Macros hot cross bun egg option earlier, I actually tried to make these macros match up, and I'll put it on screen here of what we ended up with, but I tried to make them match up. Now, it's a bit of common sense of which one of these is gonna leave you more full, which one of these is gonna make you hungrier, and therefore which one of these is gonna help you in your goal of fat loss. So that's where it comes down to. There are no, I guess, good and bad things in this game. There's just better or worse, and there's things that are gonna make you eat more, things are gonna make you want to eat less, and then it just all comes down to your own brain and how this fits in with the psychology of your diet. So people kind of neglect that, but the most important thing is, yes, calories in, calories out is a fact, right? But what influences that? What influences that is the type of food you're eating, the quality of the food, the macros, the micros. It isn't just the numbers, it's the quality of the food again. So that's why the more advanced you guys get and the more you learn about this stuff, you have to understand how they all kind of relate and the rules of macros so you can understand what's in food, but then again, how certain foods impact your body. Now, I've done all of these methods. I've done just eating without tracking, stab in the dark. I've done tracking everything to the point where I felt insane. And then now I'm learning more about intuitive eating and stuff like that, and actually being able to adjust this. The problem with me, to be perfectly honest with you guys, is when I'm dieting, I will want to just take out the rice, take out the fatty cut of meat, just really go all or nothing, because I'm kind of like a bit more extreme in that sense, but it's not good. And I've learned the hard way, because when I'm getting leaner, I will look and feel like shit because I'm not fueling my body. So I will be intuitive with this and then go, okay, make sure we're eating a certain amount of carbs relatively. For me, I can literally look at it and go, yep, that's enough carbs for this meal. I'll have the same later. That's fine. And the more you guys do this, that's where you want to be. You don't want to be thinking, oh, what's the grams in this? Did I overdo it by 5 grams of peanut butter? Because you're going to go crazy. And longevity is not about being insane. Longevity is about being comfortable with what you're doing and being able to make these small adjustments. If you want to have this veggie now, if you want to have a different kind of veggie, if you want to have steak or salmon, not the end of the world. It doesn't really matter.
And I gauge what to do with my diet based on my body's progress, how I'm looking, how I'm feeling. So I don't do it day by day. I will do it, say, how am I looking after a week, 2 weeks? How am I feeling? Do I need to eat less carbs? Sweet. Am I eating maybe too much fat here? Easy, I'll fix that. But I'm not like every day just adding it up and trying to eat something different. I'm thinking what is the best food that's going to fuel my body, and also importantly, set up the signals in the right way. So this is why most people can't intuitively eat, is because if you're trying to intuitively eat and listen to your body, but then you're filling your body with a heap of sugars, shit, processed junk, that is not, you're going to be hungry. And whether you really are or not, your body's going to be seeking those sugars, those nutrients that you necessarily might not need. So that's where it's a bit dangerous, because if you get like the average obese guy walking down the street and say, hey mate, intuitively eat, he's gonna go, sweet, I feel like a burger, and he's gonna go get a large Big Mac meal, and it's like, doesn't need that, but he wants it. So how does he know the difference? Fair enough. But if you tell me intuitively eat, I'll know, okay, cool, I'm not gonna, yeah, might like a burger, but really I'm gonna have my steak and rice meal, because that's kind of that's what I feel like, that's what I know my body needs, and that has a certain amount of protein and carbs that I need. Sometimes I won't have carbs in my meals, and that's perfectly fine, because that's consistent. So if you're trying to think, what's the next step to get from counting and tracking to that intuitive eating style, because this is where the best thing about it is you wanna get to that intuitive eating so that you can really regulate what your body's doing and how you're looking and feeling at any time. You can decide if you want to get leaner, and you know exactly what to do. So a few tips that I would recommend from progressing from that just counting calories only to that intuitive eating is, for one, intermittent fasting. That works really well with me. That's one tip that I would recommend, because it kind of teaches you as well that when you think you might be hungry, you're really not. It's just, you can really push past it and it's fine. That is kind of cool, because then you don't think, oh, my body's starving. You just think it's just this weird hunger pang, it'll go away in 10 minutes. And then you know when you are really hungry. So intermittent fasting is kind of cool for that. Another thing that I would recommend you guys do is be as consistent as possible. So write yourself a little meal plan and using a lot of good foods, unprocessed mainly. And if you want, experiment with having a little bit of something that's not in your meal plan. If you want, if you really feel like it, just have it in there, fit it in there. And by eye, just think, okay, cool. So maybe tomorrow I might have a little bit less, or just don't even worry about it. You don't need to punish yourself for foods, but just be consistent is my main point there. So try and eat mainly the same thing every day. And look, if you want to have salmon instead of steak or chicken instead of salmon, whatever that is, it doesn't really matter. And that's what I think is good to practice, is you need to practice these things, because what's important is the bigger picture here. So if you're eating like, with a 500 calorie deficit, having a little bit of, having a bit of fattier cut of meat is gonna maybe take away 70 calories or whatever. Who cares? You're still in a 430 calorie deficit. It doesn't really matter. In the grand scheme of things, it will make no difference at all. But if you're thinking that that's gonna make a huge difference, then mentally, it obviously is making a difference on how you're going about your diet. So I think practice changing things, but mainly keep things consistent. I know that sounds kind of like paradoxical, a bit contradictory, but for the most part, keep things consistent, and then every now and then, you can make a change if you want to. Third one is listen to your body. Practice eating and finishing a meal and being full, but thinking, I don't need to fill up on all this rice. You can fill up on your greens and do stuff like that. So what I do personally when I structure my meals is I'll have my set amount of protein that I am looking to have. So I don't really weigh it, but I could tell you to just estimate the grams. I have my set amount of protein, I have my set amount of carbs that I am dealing with in my meal plan, and the rest is pretty much, obviously the fats are in there, but the rest is just enough to fill me up. So greens keep me full, and that's pretty much it. And then I don't just fill up and eat carbs until I'm full, because I know that they're way more calorie dense. I don't fill up and eat protein until I'm too full, because again, it's still calorie dense and I might not need that extra protein. But the greens, that's why I see them as great value. Put them in there, let them fill up the rest of the diet. Certain foods like ice cream, chocolate, sugars, stuff like that, cereals maybe even, they will all have a different response in your body than having something like an avocado or some steak will. They'll do different things. Now, if you're not wary of those things, you don't really know what's going on, you're gonna feel hungrier, you're gonna feel maybe more irritable, your moods are gonna be down, you're not gonna feel great in the gym. They're all things we don't want, obviously. So what you guys have to do is either understand these rules and educate yourself on what's in food, and then start somewhere. And I would recommend you just limit that processed food if you can. Limit the junk, don't take out refined sugars if you can, because I don't think they really help. Unless you really need them and you think, I really feel like, then by all means, just go for it. But I'm kind of the mindset that I don't recommend people go eat a little bit of something that they love every day if it's junk food, because in another world there wouldn't be such a thing as junk food. But now it's completely normal for people, so they get upset if you take it out of their diet. Now, people are very complicated. The mind is a very complicated thing. It's hard to find something that just works with everyone. That's why it's so nuanced in this thing. But I think the biggest thing for you guys is to understand how you can do this yourself and understand the bit of the process behind it. So don't give up if you just start counting calories and it's too hard for you, you think this sucks. Know that there's better approaches, and there's different approaches that might be better for you. So to kind of wrap it up, if you're stuck in that first method of just not eating anything and starving yourself, aim to get out of there by learning and educating yourself on what's in food, starting by counting calories and researching on If It Fits Your Macros style, like the principles of macros and what that means. But then don't stay stuck there, in my opinion, because you don't want to have to rely on that. You want to be able to graduate and kind of level up to that intuitive eating where you're looking at foods for what they are, being nutrient dense, and you're fueling your body, and you're eating when you're hungry, and you're eating within like a spectrum. So it's a spectrum of calories that you kind of know by intuition and by looking at foods. You wouldn't know that if you didn't count the calories before that, but you know what that should be, and you're keeping it as consistent as possible and listening to your body and how your body feels, how your body's responding, and then you can make those changes. So then maybe after 2 weeks you go, I'm not really losing any weight, I'm gonna take a bit of the carbs out. And by that, you know exactly how much to take out because you've been pretty much eating the same thing to similar things every day. You should be able to kind of mentally track this stuff without it being too crazy for you. So it's really kind of complicated. It is a complicated process, but that's why there is no one video. If I were to tell you guys now, don't eat sugar, eat red meat with every meal, eat a bit of rice with every meal, eat a lot of veg until you're full, that would be just the rules of thumb again. And that's why it can work. And I'm sure that's probably like a lot of what people wanted to see in this video, but it would just be keeping you guys on that first kind of basis and not letting you, I guess, be empowered with the knowledge to get out of there and do it for yourself. Because what's gonna happen in 5 years? What's gonna happen in 1 year's time where your motivation wears off and you're not in good shape and you think, damn, what do I do now? You're back at square one. So I just want to give you guys basically everything I think you can do now, because then you can leave this video and you can go, okay, sweet, I'm gonna learn about macros, I'm gonna try intuitive eating, I'm gonna get myself a meal plan, I'm gonna stick to that, I'm gonna not stress about the tiny details, and I'm gonna take it from there and see what happens. Because all you have to do, it's a very easy game. All you have to do is manipulate the energy coming in and manipulate the energy going out. Do some more exercise. Take some calories out, take some food out. I'm gonna stop calling food calories because it gets a bit crazy. Take some food out if you don't need it. But that is pretty much it, guys. If you did enjoy this, comment below, like this video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But other than that, that is it. Got nothing left for you, and you guys know what to do. Stay massive.